The movie begins by showing a man picking up women, hoping to have his way with them. He sets his sights on 5 women, but one of them rebels against his advances. Enraged, the man begins to physically assault her, hitting and kicking her with brutal force. Suddenly, a gunshot rings out, and the man falls to the ground, dead on the spot. It's unclear who pulled the trigger, and the killer's identity remains a mystery. The scene shifts to a park, where a man receives news that his colleague has been shot and killed, with no known culprit. Fearful for his own safety, the man pulls out a gun, ready to defend himself if necessary. But before he knows what's happening, he too is shot in the head, just like the previous victim. The identity of the killer is still unknown. In a different place, as night falls and a bustling crowd fills the streets, among them are 2 men, clearly in a hurry and looking over their shoulders anxiously. They make a frantic call, warning someone that they're being pursued. But before they can finish their conversation, one of the men is suddenly pulled into a dark alleyway. The other man quickly hangs up and rushes to his colleague's aid. But it's too late. In a hail of gunfire, both men are killed, their bodies lying lifeless on the ground. The next day, in a desolate parking lot, a man is on the phone with his colleague when he receives shocking news. 2 of their fellow gangsters, Nozo Wei and Yamamoto, have been brutally murdered in a narrow alleyway. The man immediately senses danger and decides to go into hiding, taking refuge in his car. With him is a girl who is visibly shaken and crying. As the man and the girl cowering in the car, the tension is almost unbearable. Suddenly, a loud crash shatters the silence as the killer smashes the car window. The man tries to protect the girl, but it's no use. With a swift stroke of his knife, the killer slits the man's throat and the car is plunged into darkness. But then, something strange happens. The man's foot falls onto the gas pedal, causing the car to careen out of control. The killer realizes the girl is still in the car and chases after it, his footsteps echoing through the deserted streets. The girl is trapped and alone, hurtling towards a deadly drop, with the killer closing in fast. Just as it seems that all is lost, the killer manages to rescue her at the last possible moment, pulling her from the car just as it plunges from the building. At a seminar event sometime later, a man named Utsubo organized a socialization campaign to raise funds for children with special needs. The event took place in the same location where a young girl, Hinako Saba, had been kidnapped by now-deceased gangsters a few years ago. As a result of the trauma she experienced, Hinako was left paralyzed in her legs. However, she still offered her assistance to Utsubo in the fundraising process, despite her condition. After the fundraising event was over, Utsubo made an effort to warmly greet the children with special needs in attendance. However, that same night, a young man who had been beaten up by Utsubo's men was found hanged and executed by Utsubo. It was later revealed that Utsubo had been using the donation program as a mere facade. In reality, he was a ruthless man who would do anything to make a quick profit. He had a history of kidnapping children from wealthy families and demanding ransom money. Once he had received the money, he would kill the child to prevent any witnesses. Utsubo's fraudulent businesses, including the fundraising and donation program, had been running for many years. After the brutal execution, Utsubo returns home with his henchmen, Izaki and Suzuki. They were his trusted partners for many years in his illicit activities. Hinako was only a pawn in Utsubo's scheme, used to garner sympathy and donations from people. As they celebrate their success with a toast, Utsubo confides in Suzuki about his plans for revenge against the Fable, the notorious serial killer. Meanwhile, we see Akira Sato engrossed in a comedy show on TV before heading to work. Despite his laid-back and humorous demeanor, Sato is an enigmatic serial killer who has been systematically eliminating gangsters affiliated with his group. At work, Sato's boss looks amazed by Misaki's new hairstyle. Sato arrives at his printing and shipping company, where he works with a few colleagues. Misaki has just changed her hairstyle and it catches the attention of their boss, Fujira. However, Etsuji, another colleague of Sato's, has more salacious thoughts on his mind when he looks at Misaki's short skirt, but he's quickly interrupted by Sato. When Fujira asks Sato about the changes in Misaki's appearance, Sato innocently describes her outfit as being like that of a viper, red, white, and black. This answer doesn't satisfy Fujira, who tells Sato to deliver a package to a customer. While it's just a simple task, it's clear that Sato's mind is preoccupied with other things. On that day, Utsubo and Hinako were seen heading out to survey a place. After the survey, Hinako went to a nearby park to practice walking in the hope of freeing herself from her paralysis. While she was struggling, Sato happened to pass by but didn't offer to help. He simply observed her until Hinako, feeling upset, left him. As Sato returns home, he remembers the car accident from a few years back. After seeing Hinako struggling to walk, he asks his roommate Yoko about the incident. Yoko reveals that Hinako is the same girl Sato had helped by killing one of her captors in an old building. Meanwhile, Utsubo and his friends execute their plan to trap Etsuji, a perverted young man. At work, Misaki and her boss ask Sato to create a special painting to celebrate Christmas, which Sato agrees to. As the day comes to a close, Sato heads back to the park to see Hinako, who is diligently trying to regain her ability to walk. He approaches her and tries to offer words of encouragement to help her through her struggles. However, instead of finding comfort in his words, Hinako becomes agitated and irritated by Sato's presence. Without a word, she abruptly leaves the park and disappears from Sato's sight. As Hinako returns home, she tells Suzuki about the stalker in the park who has been interfering with her physical therapy. She mistakenly believes that the stalker is Sato and urges Suzuki to take care of the situation. Suzuki, who is fiercely loyal to Utsubo, agrees to get rid of the stalker to protect Hinako. Meanwhile, Utsubo and his accomplice are hatching a plan to install hidden cameras in Misaki's bathroom. They pretend to be insect special agents and visit Misaki's house to carry out their mission. Misaki hesitated at the offer of the insect service from Utsubo and Izaki, as she couldn't recall placing an order for it. Suspicious, she picked up an electric stun gun and threatened to use it on Izaki. Utsubo tried to talk her out of it, assuring her that their service was legitimate and trustworthy. After some persuasion, Misaki agreed to allow them to install the cameras in her bathroom. As usual, Sato waited for Hinako in the garden to accompany her to physical therapy, but she didn't show up. Suzuki then approached Sato, claiming to be Hinako's older brother, and warned Sato not to disturb Hinako again. Despite his doubts, Sato remained silent and didn't respond to Suzuki's warning. Infuriated by the lack of reaction, Suzuki kicked Sato's head, but Sato still didn't retaliate. After the violent incident, Suzuki warned Sato once more and left. The afternoon sun shone brightly as Sato rushed back to the office, determined to get his work done. He was quickly instructed to deliver a package to a customer, and without wasting any time, Sato set off on his task. Elsewhere, Utsubo and Izaki were engrossed in watching the perverted footage captured by the hidden cameras they had installed in Misaki's bathroom. Meanwhile, Hinako, who was in the same room, suddenly noticed what they were doing and surprised Utsubo. Before they could react, there was a knock on the door, and Sato appeared to deliver a package. Hinako recognized him and invited him inside, much to Utsubo's surprise. He still had no idea that Sato was actually the Fable, the infamous assassin he had been hunting. Upon entering, Sato was greeted by Hinako and apologized to Utsubo for the incident in the park when Suzuki attacked him. As they sat in the living room, Sato drank the hot tea that Utsubo had served him. However, it was too hot and Sato made a face, causing Hinako to laugh at him. Sato smiled back, feeling a bit embarrassed. After Sato left, Hinako went back to her room to take her lipstick. As she held it in her hand, she drifted into a daydream and started to remember her past. Suddenly, Utsubo barged into her room without any warning, and Hinako was caught off guard. She quickly hid the lipstick back in her drawer, hoping Utsubo didn't see it. Unexpectedly, Utsubo's intention for Hinako's room is to invite her to sleep together, and during this time he has repeatedly utilized Hinako's innocence to satisfy his sexual desires. Meanwhile, Sato arrived home with a balloon he had bought on the way back. Once he entered the house, he shared with his roommate Yoko about his past mission to kill 6 people, revealing that he had not been able to kill one of the targets because the client had called off the job. That target turned out to be Utsubo, whom Sato had just encountered. Sato started to suspect that Utsubo was running the foundation business, but he did not want to jump to any conclusions. The next day, Etsuji's mother received a call from Utsubo asking her to deliver a message to Etsuji to meet him right away. The message was related to Etsuji's perverted behavior of watching videos of Misaki naked in the bathroom, which suggested that the meeting might not be a pleasant one. In the meantime, Hinako arrived at the park hoping to find Sato and do her physical therapy, but she was disappointed when she didn't see him. Discouraged, she gave up on her therapy and decided to leave. Little did she know, Sato was secretly watching her from behind a tree, keeping his distance. He had been following her but didn't want to approach her and make her uncomfortable. Utsubo and Izaki arrived at Etsuji's house to confront his mother with evidence of Etsuji's perverted behavior. They accused Etsuji of installing a hidden camera in Misaki's bathroom to watch her bathe. Etsuji denied the accusation, claiming it was a false accusation, but Utsubo had evidence to prove otherwise. In reality, it was Utsubo who had installed the camera, and Etsuji had only obtained the footage from someone else. Utsubo showed evidence of Etsuji's perverted behavior, and Etsuji was forced to comply with his demands to avoid being reported to the police. After Etsuji is forced to hand over a huge sum of money to Utsubo, he becomes enraged at Misaki for assuming that all this was her fault and he plans to kill her. The next day at work, Etsuji seems agitated and sets his sights on killing Misaki. After picking up a knife, he approaches her with murderous intent. However, Sato happens to be there and intervenes, knocking Etsuji unconscious before he can harm Misaki. A coworker named Fujira witnesses the incident and asks what happened. To avoid alarming Misaki, Sato lies and says that Etsuji was attempting to harm him with the knife. Etsuji eventually wakes up, yells incoherently, and then leaves the office. As Sato attempts to chase after Etsuji, he finds that Etsuji has already been knocked out and kidnapped by Suzuki, who is now pointing a gun at Sato. In a tense standoff, Sato is forced to allow Suzuki to take Etsuji away. Suzuki then contacts Utsubo to inform him of Sato's presence and how he witnessed Etsuji's abduction. Utsubo becomes extremely worried upon hearing this news, as he knows that Sato is now a liability that must be dealt with. Determined to cover his tracks and eliminate any potential witnesses, Utsubo begins to make plans to get rid of both Etsuji and Sato as quickly as possible. Upon arriving at the parking lot, Suzuki contacts Sasaki and orders him to move Etsuji to another location while he deals with Sato. As Sato continues his search for Etsuji, he unexpectedly crosses paths with Suzuki, who had previously kidnapped Etsuji. Despite the danger of the situation, Sato remains fearless and approaches Suzuki with confidence, demanding that he return Etsuji within 24 hours or face severe consequences. Suzuki was impressed by Sato's bravery when he confronted him about the kidnapping of Etsuji. He sensed that Sato was not an ordinary person and became curious about him. He wanted to know more about Sato and his background. Suzuki contacted Izaki and asked him to interrogate Etsuji to reveal Sato's whereabouts. Izaki brutally electrocuted Etsuji several times until he gave in and told them where Sato lived. Suzuki immediately rushed to Sato's residence and encountered his roommate, Yoko. He pointed a gun at her and demanded that she reveal Sato's whereabouts. Though Yoko's life was in danger, she kept her composure and didn't act rashly because she was actually a reliable assassin. She knew how to handle dangerous situations and remained calm under pressure. With her skills, she was able to deceive Suzuki and escape, making her way to Sato to inform him of the danger. Despite being threatened by Suzuki, Yoko's training as an assassin allowed her to stay focused and composed, ensuring her safety and helping her complete her mission. Suzuki, not knowing Yoko's true identity as a highly skilled assassin, underestimated her abilities and was caught off guard. Yoko quickly fought back and was able to defeat Suzuki in just 8 seconds. Sato was shocked to find Suzuki, the man who had previously tried to kidnap Etsuji, bound and sitting in a chair in his home. Suzuki had been caught off guard by Yoko, Sato's roommate, who turned out to be a skilled assassin. Sato questioned Suzuki on how he had found his address and what his intentions were, to which Suzuki admitted he had planned to kill him. It was then that Suzuki recognized Sato as the Fable, a notorious hitman known for always succeeding in his missions. Sato ordered Suzuki not to speak much and asked about Etsuji's whereabouts. Just then, Izaki called Suzuki and informed him that Etsuji had been killed in a hit-and-run accident. Suzuki panicked, fearing Sato would kill him, but to his surprise, Sato let him go. After learning that Etsuji has been killed and that the Fable is actually Sato, Suzuki rushed back to the base and reported to Utsubo. He informed Utsubo that Etsuji had been killed by Izaki and that he had to kill Izaki to save himself. Suzuki also revealed that Sato was the Fable, which was the reason why Utsubo had been looking for him. Curious about why Utsubo wanted to kill the Fable so badly, Suzuki asked for an explanation. Utsubo reveals to Suzuki the reason behind his vendetta against the Fable. One of the gangsters killed by Sato 4 years ago was Utsubo's own brother. This explains why Utsubo was so desperate to get rid of Sato. Utsubo then begins to plan Sato's demise. He knows that Sato is a skilled fighter and will not be easy to take down. However, he believes that he has found a weakness in Sato's armor. The next day, Hinako returns to the park for physical therapy. As she continued to struggle, she fell again. Sato, who was secretly keeping an eye on her, observed her struggles and approached her as she got up. Hinako looked frustrated that she had fallen again without any help. Sato then offered to assist Hinako, borrowing her still stiff legs to demonstrate some exercises and offering words of encouragement to keep Hinako motivated and optimistic about her therapy. Unbeknownst to Sato, Utsubo secretly records her conversations with Sato through a remote voice recorder installed on Hinako's clothes. However, Sato seems to be aware of this and doesn't say anything incriminating. When Hinako asks Sato why he is silent, he is suddenly hit on the head and falls unconscious. Panicked, Hinako suddenly stands up and manages to walk to save Sato. She is surprised to find that she can stand and walk, but it turns out to be just a dream. Hinako, still shaken by her dream, meets with Utsubo and pleads with him not to harm Sato. She explains that Sato has been a great source of encouragement for her, motivating her to continue with her physical therapy. However, Utsubo, who is desperate to turn Hinako against Sato, reveals to her that Sato or the Fable is, in fact, the one who killed her parents. This revelation shocks Hinako to her core as she never suspected that someone she trusted so deeply could be capable of such heinous acts. Hinako is left speechless and unable to process this new information. The next day, after all the plans were ready, Utsubo immediately took Hinako to a safer place. Before they departed, Hinako went to Utsubo and asked for a gun. Though suspicious of her intentions, Utsubo gave Hinako the gun, thinking she wanted to kill Sato. However, he gave the bullets separately to ensure that things did not escalate in an undesirable way. As Utsubo was escorting Hinako to the car, he noticed a little girl playing nearby. He approached her and gave her a doll, seemingly as a kind gesture. As Sato returns home, he receives a phone call from Utsubo, who invites him to discuss Hinako's problems. Sato, unaware of Utsubo's true intentions, agrees to meet with him at his apartment. However, Yoko, suspicious of Utsubo's motives, insists on accompanying Sato to the meeting. Upon arriving at the apartment complex, Sato and Yoko make their way to Utsubo's unit. Yoko waits outside and continues to communicate with Sato via phone. As Sato arrived at Utsubo's apartment, he cautiously opened the door, wary of any traps that might be waiting for him. His suspicion was not unfounded, as he quickly spotted explosive wires rigged around the door. Reacting swiftly, Sato shut the door and leaped to the ground to avoid the imminent blast. As he landed on the ground, a team of mercenary soldiers hired by Utsubo surrounded him, armed and ready to take him down. Thinking fast, Sato donned his mask and slipped into a nearby apartment, throwing a smoke bomb to cover his movements. He patiently waited in the shadows for the mercenaries to come to him, taking them out one by one with calculated precision. But just when Sato thought he had everything under control, he heard a gunshot ring out from a distance. It became apparent that Utsubo had also hired a sniper to take Sato out from a nearby building. In a split second, Sato reacted and narrowly avoided the bullet, quickly changing direction to evade the sniper's deadly aim. Sato's escape from Utsubo's hired mercenaries leads him to break into an apartment through the bedroom window. As he makes his way down the apartment corridor, he's confronted by another hitman. But Sato is quick to act and manages to take down his assailant. Taking advantage of the chaos caused by the evacuation, Sato blends in with the crowd and heads towards the exit. However, the enemy forces are relentless in their pursuit of Sato and he's soon forced into a narrow passage. A short but intense fight ensues, and Sato emerges victorious, managing to escape from the building. But the danger is far from over. Utsubo calls Sato and reveals that he has planted a bomb in a doll bag that he gave to a little girl, who is now in grave danger. Sato realized that he had to act fast to save the little girl from the bomb planted in the doll bag. Despite the danger, he made the decision to return to the apartment building. Yoko, who was still outside, agreed to contact the snipers to keep them at bay. Sato makes his way to the girl's apartment unit, but he is immediately met with a group of assassins waiting for him inside. In a fierce firefight, Sato takes them on one by one and manages to come out on top. He continues his ascent toward the top of the building, all the while searching for the little girl. However, when he finally reaches the apartment, he finds that the girl is missing. As he frantically searches for her, he notices a balloon floating in the distance. To his horror, he sees the little girl chasing after it on the rooftop of the adjacent building. Sato reaches the girl's apartment, but he has to fight against several assassins who were waiting for him there. After a tough gunfight, he runs towards the top floor but discovers that the little girl has gone out of the apartment chasing a balloon. When he returns to the apartment, he confronts a skilled hitman and an intense fight ensues. Sato is nearly defeated and about to be shot by a sniper, but Yoko manages to disable the sniper just in time. Suzuki witnesses the incident but is too scared to act. Yoko quickly informs Sato about the whereabouts of the endangered little girl, and after a tough battle, Sato successfully defeated the assassin by using an explosive bomb to cause the stairs to collapse and send the hitman tumbling down. Sato raced against time to save the little girl, passing through the obstacles put in his way by Utsubo's troops. As the building's staircase started to collapse, Sato continued his pursuit, finally reaching the little girl just in time. Utsubo had given the little girl a bag of dolls with a bomb hidden inside, but to Sato's relief, the bag only contained a harmless packet of jelly. After saving the little girl, Sato is determined to track down Utsubo and Hinako. He contacts Yoko and asks her to immediately locate the two. Yoko tracks down Utsubo's car while Sato seeks the help of his acquaintances who are gang leaders. He borrows vehicles and weaponry from them to pursue Utsubo and Hinako. As Yoko was tracking Utsubo's car in the woods, Suzuki suddenly tossed a grenade towards her vehicle, causing her to jump out to avoid the explosion. However, the grenade didn't go off, and Yoko realized that it was a trap set up by Suzuki to get her out of the car. Suzuki held Yoko at gunpoint and dragged her to the forest. Once there, he tied her to a tree and left her alone. Later, Hinako and Utsubo arrived, and Hinako questioned who the woman was. Utsubo explained that Yoko was Sato's colleague and an assassin. Utsubo hands Hinako a bullet and orders her to kill Yoko, who is tied to a tree in the forest. However, Hinako surprisingly turns the gun on Utsubo and shoots him instead. Unfortunately, Utsubo was wearing a bulletproof vest and survives the shot. As Hinako points the gun at Utsubo, he's taken aback when she suddenly opens fire on him. But to his relief, he survives the shot because he was wearing a bulletproof vest. Utsubo is confused by Hinako's sudden attack and asks her why she tried to kill him. Hinako reveals that she knows Utsubo was responsible for the murder of her parents, not Sato as she had previously believed. Utsubo admits his guilt, confirming Hinako's suspicion. Meanwhile, Sato and his driver arrive at the scene, causing Suzuki to panic. Hinako refused to back down, determined to exact her revenge on Utsubo. She rose to her feet and took aim at him, her gun steady in her hand. As she moved closer, she poured out all of the sadness and anger that had been building inside her, her voice shaking with emotion. But before she could pull the trigger, Suzuki intervened, revealing that Hinako was standing on a trap set up for Sato. If she moved her legs, a bomb would be triggered and explode. Hinako hesitated briefly, but, driven by her frustration with Utsubo's games, she shouted and fired her gun until she collapsed. Sato acted quickly and caught her, holding her legs to prevent her from setting off the bomb trap. Utsubo grabbed a grenade and hurled it at Sato and Hinako, but it bounced harmlessly off a nearby object. Sato then enlisted the help of Suzuki to save Hinako, convincing him that Utsubo had been using him all along. Suzuki began to see the truth in Sato's words and decided to help, immediately untying Yoko and joining the fight against Utsubo. Suzuki then operated the excavator and carefully positioned the engine arm to support Hinako's leg. Sato and Hinako worked together to free her leg just in time to avoid the bomb explosion. Thanks to their quick action, Hinako survived the blast. But as they breathed a sigh of relief, Utsubo suddenly hurled another grenade at Hinako. This time, however, Utsubo had forgotten to pull the pin, and the grenade didn't detonate. At that moment, Suzuki took the opportunity to shoot Utsubo in the head, ending his life. It was revealed that Utsubo had intentionally left the grenade without pulling the pin to provoke Suzuki into killing him. As the sun set, the group buried Utsubo's body there. The following day, Sato returns to his everyday life while Suzuki stays with Hinako, vowing to keep her safe. On Christmas Eve, Sato receives a letter from Hinako, expressing her reconciliation with the past and her determination to fight and walk again. The letter is accompanied by a pair of crutches and a Christmas cake. The moral that can be learned from this movie is to be cautious of others and not let anyone take advantage of you. It's also important to stand up for yourself and fight for what you believe in.